Hey guys, Quashid here. I wanted to talk about something very important inside of Phantom Abyss. The thing is traps. There's no way to avoid seeing traps inside of the temple, so they are a very important aspect. As I mentioned before in the previous video, what is Phantom Abyss? There are going to be traps such as spikes, spinning blades, swinging hammers, and of course boulders, and there's so much more. At the start of every run, a Phantom will start with 3 heart containers. That number may change depending on certain whips, but in general, 3 is the starting number. Every trap will cause the Phantom to lose 1 heart container, until of course, there are no more hearts to break. Alright, so let's jump right into it. Or maybe it's better not to. The first type of trap I would like to talk to is the bottomless pit. Holes in the ground that will lead to nothing but fog and doom. Sometimes the temple will trick you with tiles that you think you can stand on but will collapse under your feet and leading to your death. Tiles may move on a specific timer or again will collapse the moment they feel your presence. Another trap that is associated with bottomless pits is the green and red platforms. Green platforms move slowly side to side and are very reliable to stand on, while the red platforms, they move a lot faster, but they move in one singular motion. And once they reach the other side, they will disappear and reappear on the other side. The best way to avoid them is to not jump to conclusions. Just use the whip provided and pull yourself out. The worst sound in my opinion is hearing the spikes resetting under you and you haven't moved at all. Makes me skip a beat every single time. There's about 3 different spikes that you're going to encounter, different variations of course, but you're going to have the 2x2 spikes, the 1x1, and what I call the non-moving spikes. You'll encounter spikes on almost every level and in different locations. Sometimes you'll see them as squares or lines, and you may find them in regular rooms, but sometimes in hallways between rooms and in hidden chest rooms. So be careful turning corners because spikes, they might be there. 2x2 spikes are activated by phantom proximity. You have about 2.2 seconds to move out of the way of spikes before they're activated, so it's not that much time, so be alert. The 1x1 spikes usually take place instead of bottomless pits, and they're a little bit different from the 2x2s. They are always active, and once a phantom hits them, they retract. And it's like that for the whole temple. So it's kind of the opposite of a 2x2 spike. Last of the spikes is what I call the non-moving spikes. Some may say the line spike or spike of lines, red spikes, there's different names, but I love seeing them because I know nothing fancy will happen. Just don't touch them, don't jump on them, and everything will be okay. Just like the name, they do not move, even if they're hit by phantoms, and are found in long lines with other non-moving spikes. There are some tricks for the spikes that you may encounter, such as the ones that are in the hallway. You may be able to grapple to the walls and the ceilings to jump around them and over them, but for beginners I would suggest just wait for the spikes to go down and run over them. But if you are more of the pro gamer out there, you will be able to jump over the 2x2 spikes if you time it correctly. And if there are 2 2x2 spikes side by side, you can actually run between them, but like I said, it is risky. I would just say if you are a beginner, stick to activating the spikes and then waiting for them to deactivate. The game insists that I call it a falling spike, but we all know it's a giant rock that wants to squish you, especially if you have the lightning whip. The falling, whatever you want to call it, I call it a falling rock. People call it, I've heard pyramids as well, is another proximity trap similar to the 2x2 spikes. And as the name dictates, they fall when you get near. The best way to avoid them is to go around them and wait for them to drop. I have rarely ever seen them in hallways. Most of the time they're in rooms, so you have enough or plenty of room to go around them. But I have seen them in certain chest rooms, so do be careful. And like I warned before, if you do have the lightning whip, this will be an instant death. It's probably your worst nightmare. But there is a fun fact. If you are able to whip either the spike or rock or pyramid in the air, or the platform where it falls, when you whip it, it will cause the trap to actually activate, so you can proc it before you get there, so you can have plenty of time if you are running away from the scary red man. Also, the same as the 2x2 spikes, if there are 2 rocks side by side, you will be able to run between them. Blades are very important in the temple, and there are about two variants of the blades. You have blades that are attached to pillars and blades that shoot from the ground. Blades that are attached to pillar come in two different sizes. You have the large and the small, and also you have the option to have 1, 2, 3, or 4 blades on the pillar, and then there will be the height, whether it's at the head level or the waist level. There are a few I have seen that are double bladed with the height being the head and the waist, but that's very rare, but it is out there, so do be careful. All in all, though, the blades are probably the most diverse trap in the game, leading to different combinations of height, amount of blades, how big the blades are, how fast they spin, but there are a few ways to avoid them. Blades are one of the few traps that you can whip, and when you do whip them, it will stop right in their path. But be careful. Phantoms can whip the blades as well if they have previously whipped them in their run, which will cause it to stop, and for me has caused me to run right into a blade that I thought was still moving but has stopped. If the blade is at the higher level, you will be able to crouch or slide under it. And if the blade is at the lower level, you can always jump over it. Unless it is at a certain slant, it is a little bit more difficult. If you're going up a hill and the blade is there, I would suggest just walking around it or walking in pace with the blades. Another way to avoid it is if there is room above the pillar, you can always whip to the top and then just completely avoid the blades altogether, which is what I would suggest, especially when you start hitting the caverns and the inferno where there's multiple blades and the guardians have become a lot stronger. Try to avoid the blades as much as possible. Blades that shoot from the ground, or I've heard sometimes people call them the guillotines, are activated by proximity, or they can be set by a timer. They shoot up and they fall down, so be careful because either way they go, they will cause damage. You can whip the ground where they shoot out and to cause it to activate. If you are trying to run a little bit faster and you have the long whip, it is beneficial. Similar to the falling spike or rock or pyramid, you can whip it to activate it so you can kind of be one step ahead. The best way though, especially for beginners for me, is just to wait for the blade to fully activate from the up animation to the down animation and then just proceed to walk through. But if you are a little risky pro gamer and you're chased by the crazy red man, you can slide underneath the blades as they're in the air. Just like the Indiana Jones movies, there has to be darts. There is the static cannon that shoots 2 darts in a single path and are triggered either by proximity or on timer. You can't really slide or crouch under the darts, but you can jump over them. My best advice to avoid them is to either continue jumping over them or just wait for the darts to continue their path. I have seen a couple times if there is something blocking the path, such as a rock or a pillar, and the dart is stuck on that object, and you happen to hit it, it will sometimes cause a heart of damage. So be warned to just kind of avoid the darts at all costs. They will hurt, especially certain whips like the vine whip. It is an instant death. As well, there are statue cannons that will lock onto your character similar to the Eye of Agony and will try to snipe you in the air. Just like the eye, I would suggest moving in random motions to keep the line off of you, and the darts shouldn't hit you as well as the Eye of Agony. But unlike the Eye of Agony, if you happen to cross a previous path, it is possible that the darts may hit you. So try to keep it wild and crazy, but don't repeat the same motion because the darts have a likelihood of hitting you. You can also just hit the statue with the whip, causing it to spin and lose focus for a certain amount of time. At first, when I first saw the hammers in the game, they seemed pretty easy. Just avoid them, forehead. But when you have 8 of them lined up and they're synced perfectly and Crazy Red Man is chasing after you in the inferno, that's when I decided to go into a corner and cry. But in all seriousness, hammers will be either going north or south or west. Do not try to slide under the hammers. That is a no-no. You will get hit. If the hammer is swinging north to south though, you can easily jump around it, or if you're a pro gamer, you can go right next to it, and if there's 2, you can go in between them. It is very risky, but it is doable. Just like I was taught in high school and college, it is important to stretch before any physical activity, but I don't think you want to use these spiky rolling pins. There are about 2 types. You have the high pins and the low pins. The high pins, you can crouch and slide under them. The low pins are easy, you can just jump right over them. You can also whip the pins to have them locked in position, but similar to the blades, be careful of previous phantoms as they can also stop the pins, which can mess up with your pathing. I have seen a few times where there is 2 pins, one high, one low. So also be careful of that to make sure your timing is correct so you don't get hit by either or. Like a chef in the kitchen, there are giant rolling pins in the temple. Don't know why I use that analogy, but I guess it fit and I put it in the video. They're actually harmless, but underneath them can be 1x1 spikes or bottomless pits. Yeah, don't be too mean to them, they're trying their best. I do hope you're not claustrophobic by any means because these traps are designed to crush you. Don't know the best term to call them. I'm going to call them crushing walls, but they will either come down from you by the ceiling or by the walls. There are many variations that the crushing walls can come into, so it's kind of hard to talk about all of them, but I will say do not be afraid to touch them. They're friendly to touch, just don't get crushed by them. If they are coming from the walls, you can kind of look to see if there is room in the ceiling to go over them instead of trying to run through them. They will move at different speeds, so be careful because some may crush a little bit slower than others, and some might crush a little bit faster. I will say be careful when you decide to go all link and destroy all the pots in the temple, as some pots may be hiding poisonous gas instead of coins. Break them from a safe distance with the whip and wait for the poison to disperse before going through. It's not like the mass defiler's poison balls where you can kind of run through them and whip through them and not lose a heart. The poison in the pots are deadlier. They are insta heart lost. Just one heart though, it's not an insta death. Lava, though, is something that you won't really have to worry about until you hit the Infernal Room, but try to avoid this at all times. Unless, of course, you have the Fire Whip. You only lose half a heart if you touch the lava, but of course, the longer you stay in the lava, the more and more hearts you will lose. So, common sense will tell you, just don't touch it. On the other hand, lava falls are completely harmless. You can fly through the lava falls, and you will not get hurt. Last but not least, this game does have fall damage. I know it's custom in a new game to test if there's fall damage. There is. You will lose about half a heart to a heart and a half, depending on the height. The best way to avoid it is with blessings or whips. So the 2 blessings you can use would be double jump and wings, or of course you can use the whip to not have fall damage, or you can just use the control button, which will do the roll. Timed perfectly, you can avoid any height of fall damage. So that's going to be all the traps right now. Remember, this game is still in early access of the moment of me recording this. A lot of this may change, and a lot of things may be added in the future. I wanted to get this video out because I know a lot of people are coming to the Discord asking about help and advice for different traps. Hopefully you have learned something new. If you do have some insight that I was not able to talk about in this video, leave it down in the comments below. Help other people out. Help me out because there's some of this stuff I did not know until moments of recording. There's a lot of people that have helped me with this, so I do want to thank all my friends and all the people in the Discord that have helped me along with this. Again, like, subscribe, comment, all the fun stuff YouTubers tell you about, and until next time, I'll see y'all later.